BrainTap is and tell us what it actually solves, because I think it'd be really helpful for people to just understand that.
We've done some studies and taught people how to do surgeries without pain.
So you're definitely analyzing the brain waves.
You can train the brain to put you into a state almost like a coma state, and you don't feel pain.
Aren't I going to feel pain?
Pain is a signal. So what happens is, in most cases, once you know the signal, you can turn it off.
So listen, everybody out there, this is an interesting episode. I would just want to prepare everybody. This is rapid fire of like a considerable amount of information about the brain, about what your brain's doing. I mean, some of the lines in there that he said, like jet lag is light lag.
And he said, I think light was the most underprescribed mineral for people, which I thought was brilliant. That was a brilliant statement.
Yeah. Or what do you call nutrient? Did he say nutrient? I think he said nutrient.
Maybe nutrient or million. But, you could tell, very intelligent guy, super passionate. And that was you might need to listen to this one in 0.8 speed because we were rolling. But, man, I mean, it's interesting. And you're going to try it out tomorrow. Or maybe.
Yeah, I'm actually, so listen, I think there's some interesting things there. I talk about my mom having a hard time sleeping, and supposedly this is supposed to be very helpful for that. But I think it's also the one thing I think that we were trying to get out of this was that this thing tends to help several things. It's all about the brain. It's all about the nervous system. It's all about anxiety and all those other things. So, listen, I think everyone's going to enjoy this one. Give it a listen to. And like Ben said, you might have to go backwards because Dr. Patrick Porter is rapid firing information on this thing. Yeah.
I love it. Genius.
Good stuff. Let's roll it.
Here we go.
We have Dr. Patrick Porter on the pod today. For you podcast here, very excited about this. He is the founder and CEO of BrainTap. It's a brain fitness, a technology-enhanced meditation company built around Brainwave Entrainment. That's not entertainment, it's entrainment. We're going to actually jump into that. Patrick, how are you doing? Great to have you here.
I'm doing great, Dom. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I just want to say Dr. Ben's going to jump on any minute. Very interesting to have Patrick on here because there is a lot of talk right now about brain health, those kind of things. And just to give everybody to really understand, roughly 75% of U.S. adults say they're experiencing stress right now. That's 75%. Nearly half are reporting significant daily stress. One of the highest rates among high-income nations. Adults dealing with high stress from a societal vision report, physical symptoms at higher rates, 83% versus 66% everyone else. 94% of highly lonely adults report at least one physical stress symptom like a headache, fatigue, or muscle tension. 34% of working age adults now report persistent brain fog. I just want to say that again because that freaks me out. 34% of working age adults now report persistent brain fog. And they say that's actively hurting their job performance. Among younger adults, chronic illness rates have jumped from 48% to 58% between 2019 and 2023. And while mental health diagnoses in the same group rose from 31 to 45%. So those to me are some really scary stats. What I think we have on is the perfect guy to talk to us about that. And Dr. Ben, right in the nick of time, man, you made it to the first question.
Oh, man. Sorry about that.
You made
Dr. Porter, Patrick, nice to meet you.
So to give the audience an understanding of what it is that you've created, is it fair to say that you've created kind of an almost in-home, at-home gym for the brain and nervous system?
That's exactly how we describe it to a lot of people. Just like we used to have people, when I was in school back in the 70s, we tried to put a gym in our school, and the parents actually petitioned not to because they said it was going to stunt our growth. So, and I think people don't understand that the brain changes all the time. It's what you're stating is because of the conditions of our country and the world, it's actually shrinking our brain. This stress they actually contribute to the shrinking of the brain 3/4 of an inch in general. This is because of something called sympathetic drive, and we can get more into it, but it's not the stress that's killing them. That's the problem. People think it's the stress. Our body can handle a lot of stress, but we have to have recovery. Mm-hmm. You know, when Tom Brady is one of our biggest users, he says for every 1 minute of exertion, you need 2 minutes of recovery. Most people never get recovery. They go from one stressful event to another stressful event. And the brain we have today is not designed for the life we're living. We're designed to maybe have these major stressful events, maybe 4 or 5 times a week. Some people get them before breakfast. We have to train our brain and do things differently.
I think it's actually really important for everybody to define what a stressful event actually is. Can you do that for us?
It's defined by you personally, because one thing could be stressful for you and be very exciting to another person. I usually use the example when I'm talking. I say, anybody here fly Black Hawk helicopter pilot? Is a Black Hawk helicopter pilot? And of course, only one time did anybody ever raise their hand and say it. And I said, when they don't just put people into that cockpit, they test them out. They're actually looking for people that can't handle the stress, because that pilot is doing two different things with his feet, doing two different things with his hands, missile guidance, listening to his crew in one ear, the tower in another ear, the eye looking at a heads-up display and looking out, and then people start shooting at him. That would be stressful, right? So, but there's pilots that love that. They thrive in that environment, where other people, they wouldn't be able to handle it. So stress is when you actually downregulate, even down to the DNA. MIT just proved this. So that means that when Henry Ford said, hey, if I think I can or I think I can, I'm right, your biology is mirroring that. Most stress is anticipatory stress. It's not real stress. It's basically fearing what might happen or could happen. And that's where I always say that mental rehearsal is so important. There's not a professional athlete doesn't use mental rehearsal. They visualize what they're going to do, then they go out and perform it. But people get up every morning. In this way I explain it, I said, imagine we're at the 100-yard dash. We wake up in the morning, we're at the 100-yard dash, we're looking down the track, and we look over at the start and we go, hey, I didn't train for this. Well, you're going to be on the 100-yard dash again tomorrow, because we call it the human race. But you knew you were going to run the race. 97% of what's going to happen to us today we knew about yesterday. It's the 3% that should be causing us some problems. But most everything that happens during the day we know about, but we pretend not to know about it, or we don't plan for it. We don't eat correctly. We don't move and breathe. We don't do the things that are going to make our brain more resilient. We don't do stress resilient exercises, which we can go into some of those for the listeners that they can do without our technology. You can, obviously there's technology that can do things too, but we need to have things we can do. We're designed to handle a lot of stress. The problem is, like I said, it's not the stress that's killing us. And then what happens, what that really shows us is 2/3 of the world isn't sleeping. And imagine that we're in medical school, it's 2015. They're going to tell us about something called the lymph system, the lymphatic system. And everybody knows that wherever there's a blood vessel, there's a lymphatic vessel. But if you look at even on the internet today, they stop the lymphatic system at the neck. But then you're with the guy, a doctor in Denmark, and you're doing a sleep study. And you notice that the body has something that they never discovered before. This is a part of the human body they didn't even know existed before 2015, called the glial lymphatic system. They notice it only activates, like an X-Men, like a sci-fi movie. When you get into this level 4 sleep, your brain opens up and detoxes the brain. Now, if you don't reach that level 4 sleep, you're never detoxing the brain. You're going to have that foggy brain that you're talking about. You're going to have stressful thinking. You're not going to process, because there's only 4 reasons your brain isn't operating right. One is toxins. One is trauma. You might have had a head injury or something like that. One could be the thoughts, traumas, toxins. And so when you think about thoughts, if you have negative thoughts, science has already proven that if you're a negative thinker, you live 6.5 years less than somebody who's a positive thinker. So all these things, and then technology can do some damage. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there, and I want to just unpack a few of these pieces right now. So when you're talking about this system that only kicks on when you've actually reached how much deep sleep, or did you define that?
It's called level 4 sleep.
Level 4 sleep.
Like if you have a sleep metric, you'll see when you sleep well, you'll get at least an hour of deep sleep and 2 hours of REM. Those two are the most important factors of sleep. We did a study in Australia, just to give you an idea. We measured coal miners for 2 weeks before we did our study. The average coal miner was in bed 10 hours a night. They got 1 minute of deep sleep and 2 minutes of REM on average. That means they weren't sleeping. They were just in bed. So people think being in bed equals sleep. No, sleep is more of a sport now. People are measuring it and doing things.
Quick side note, why were the coal miners not sleeping?
Well, number one, they don't have any circadian rhythm. They're never in the light of the sun. Every one of our cells has something on it called a chromophore. This is like a little battery. And it absorbs light, sound, and vibrational energy from your environment. It does it every day. You don't have to do a piece of equipment. You're the equipment. If you get outside or you ground, these are things that are good, healthy for the body. They've proven it in science. But what happens when you take light out of the equation, the body doesn't function. Light is the most underprescribed nutrient on Earth today because we're light activated. I said earlier, the electron transport chain, what we now know in neuroscience is that everything starts with this chain of activities. You think a thought, spark happens, energy flows through the brain, mitochondria releases signals to the body, energy flows, nitric oxide, blood flow, circulation, little turbines start up, and in the engine of ATP starts running. Now you have motivation. But it all starts in that electron transport chain is light. You are light. This shocks some people, but science has proven now that we are light beings. We're not chemical beings. Remember, the chemical reactions in our body happen after the electrical thoughts happen in the body. That's where neuroscience is going. Why do we use lasers and we use LED lights and things like that? Because the body responds to these light. And the body is designed to heal. You know, that's what most people don't understand. It's not, you don't have to do anything to heal.
Yeah, sorry, before we go there, because you're rapid firing us on so many interesting topics that we want to hit on. Ben, I think Ben wants to jump in.
Dr. Porter, Patrick, sorry, I apologize for being late. One of those days for me. I think I was getting to we've had a few sleep specialists on here, and I do think light is having a moment, right? People are recognizing that the importance of it. And Dom and I were talking about your product, your device. Does it emit light?
Yes.
Utilizes that to manipulate.
470 nanometer light and 650 nanometer light. And it's just enough to trigger the optic nerve. And one of the big reasons for that is people don't realize when you close your eyes, you stop blood flow to the frontal lobe. And that blood flow goes back to the amygdala. That's your primitive brain. That's why most people can't meditate. That monkey mind takes over and they're not feeling safe anymore. Because usually when we close our eyes, we're sleeping. So what we show is that if you keep the frontal lobe active and you can keep doing, now you can do that also with breath work. You can use breath work, things like that. But these people that only 5% of people actively meditate because they can't meditate. We've measured 40,000 brains in the last 10 years, and we've only met 2 people that actually could hold on to an alpha brainwave. And that's neutral for the brain. That should be easy for people.
I think I want to chime in real quick, Dom, because we actually, one of Dom's good buddies, I think from grade school, is a big breathwork guy, right? And we had him on. And when I was kind of researching for the podcast, reading about your stuff, I said it to Dom, I'm like, at this point, there's so many ways to do this. Whether it be meditation, whether it be breath work, whether it be the sauna, or whatever, we all have our techniques that we try, right? And I was intrigued to see why your device is better. Is it, or who's it for? Is it these guys give me a hard time because I'm always trying to do this breath work and I can't do it. I can't sit still long enough. I'm too hyper.
We have about 100 sessions of breath work on BrainTap. One of the leading breath work people in the world, because it is true that it's hard to stay focused. But breath work is a key. Think of it as the light switch to your sympathetic and parasympathetic. When you breathe in, you're actually triggering the sympathetic system. So if it's already hardwired and you're already stressed out, it amplifies that. So when you breathe out, you're turning on the parasympathetic. So a lot of these breath work, there's 3 breath works that I always teach people first. So a lot of people jump right to Wim Hof or some of these other exotic
Dom, that's you.
work. Yeah. But in the morning, the breath work, because what you want to do in brain fitness, what makes us better, I don't know if there's anything better. It's just, we have 120,000 users. We've been doing it for 40 years. We have 72 peer-reviewed journals. We were researchers of the year in Asia. I mean, we've been there, done that. And I've not found anything that works as well, but we work with a lot of other things. BrainTap isn't like a one-size-fits-all and fixes everything. It's more of a, we need brain fitness like you need to go to the gym, but the gym doesn't make you healthier unless if you're eating a bunch of junk. So we say in brain health, you need to fix your diet because you can't outwork a bad diet. Number 2, you got to have movement and breath. And that's where the breath work comes in. And number 3 is you need to have some kind of brain fitness, which means recovery time. So what we tell people is when you're doing this in the morning, breath work, since you brought it up, I'll tell them the 3 keys to breath work for brain fitness. There's a lot more, but I'm just going to do the 3 simple ones. We've all done this as kids. Mom says, go clean your room. You go, and they call that a psychological breath. So I tell people before you leave the bedroom, do a minute or 2 of psychological breathing. Just what we know that does in the lab is it triggers a brainwave called SMR. And the importance of SMR, sensory motor rhythm, is a brainwave between beta, wide awake, and alpha, which is kind of a daydreaming brainwave. But that's the brainwave that atrophies as we get better looking and more intelligent with age. So as we age, and stress collapses it. That's why if you've ever seen the video of Bill Gates demonstrating the USB plug, and he's getting all flustered, he can't even plug in a USB, and he's probably done it a million times. When stress happens, the signaling system from our brain to our body is disconnected. Now we can measure that now with something called HRV, right? Heart rate variability. When somebody gets in a stressful situation, they crush their HRV. This is the communication between the heart and brain. And the heart is the orchestra leader. It's the one who talks more to the brain. This brain in the head, it's like a Google tablet. It gets us into trouble. But the brain in our body, like our gut brain and our heart brain, those are the ones that are really in control of de-stressing. So in the afternoon, by the way, most people don't realize this, but every day at 2 o'clock, wherever you're at on the planet, your temperature is going to drop 2 degrees. That's why you get hungry. That's why you get thirsty. But it's really telling you need to take a break because this biological system that we have, we call the human body, it hasn't changed in 200,000 years. It's still designed for the Serengeti. Okay. Nothing happens in the Serengeti at 2 o'clock.
Okay, hold on a second. There was a lot there we got to cover. Let's go to that last piece, which was at 2 o'clock. You're saying that everybody's temperature, internal temperature, drops 2 degrees.
If you're dysregulated, it'll drop more. You'll think you have low blood sugar because that's a sign of it. You know, the body's trying to reboot. It's called the circadian rhythm. We now know, and this is science fact now, so I don't want anybody to believe me. This is all fact. You can look it all up. MIT just proved about 22 weeks ago that our sun is beaming codes to our body that our mitochondria absorb and then transmit back into our body as codes that tell our body what to do. So that's why when you have jet lag, it's not jet lag, it's light lag. Because your body is also, I'm just mentioning a few of them because we could go around the clock. But if you're not in bed by 10 o'clock at night, you don't make as much melatonin. And you can't take enough melatonin. And melatonin's not just for sleeping. Melatonin's for communication of every cell. Between 10 and 11.
But going back, at 2 p.m., the body temp drops 2 degrees. But what's important about 2 p.m. is the amount of light that's in the sky. Is that the trigger? I just want to put those pieces together.
Think of it that everything, when people wonder, how do the trees know when to bloom? How does everything know to act? It's because the universe is synchronistic. Everything is in harmony. We are running around basically making our own light, doing our own things. We're not like, but when we were in nature, just to give you an example, they would go to sleep when it was dark. They didn't have lights. They didn't have Netflix, all these things. So they went to sleep. Then they'd wake up with sunrise. I can tell you over and over again how ancient cultures do it.
Is that the basis of the cause in your mind, that we evolved socially and lifestyle-wise much more quickly than our brains were able to adapt, essentially?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we can create our own atmosphere. I mean, you can use technology now to do the same thing, but you can't reset the 200, because that light that we're talking about is infrared light you are actually beaming infrared light. Every person on Earth beams infrared light from their body that can be measured. When I was talking about earlier, when we're light beings, so they did a study during COVID. They took people that looked at COVID as a threat and they looked at COVID as a challenge. Those people that looked at it as a challenge actually had 200 times more light generating from their body than people that looked at it as a threat.
What was the analysis of light in that study?
You can measure it. You actually have real light coming from your body.
I know, but what did they, in the study you're referencing, how did they measure it? They have some sort of
there's light meters you can use on the body that are that sensitive, because it's infrared. Used to be you could look at it with your phone. If you have an old phone, you can actually see corona discharges around people when there's no lights on, because it was picking up the infrared spectrum. You've
said something a few times which I think is really important. We keep talking about challenge or threat, and the best thing that I've heard for this, which really was eye-opening for me, is that any situation that you look at as a threat, you're going to be stressed. But any situation that you look at as a challenge creates actually excitement. So I think first of all, a really, really good point. I think the second thing, and you covered so many different things, I want to go back to jet lag as light lag for a minute. But before, I think what everyone needs to understand is without marketing in the easiest 3 bullet points you possibly can come up with, tell us what BrainTap is and tell us what it actually solves, because I think it'd be really helpful for people to just understand that.
Okay, well, BrainTap is a brainwave entrainment device. We use light, sound, and vibration, and it's all synchronized, researched. I mean, we have research partners around the world. So what we do is each brain state, those brain states are dependent upon activities. So when you're awake, you should have a different brain profile than when you're asleep. So what we're finding is most people have a sleeping brain while they're awake. This is a sign of inflammation or traumatic brain injury or just poor eating. But once we start training the brain, it's not one brainwave that's really important. It's all the brainwaves. I tell people it's like Tai Chi for the mind. You want to be in the gateway to those brainwaves is your nervous system, because 70% of the nervous system is between your ears. It's not down your spine and out your limbs. So what we do is we figured out an algorithm starting in 1986 where what we were doing, I was working for a company called Light and Sound Research, and we were trying to solve the pain problem, which still isn't solved, but we've done some studies and taught people how to do surgeries without pain. I've done that myself, and I've had other people do it. You don't need anesthetic. Your brain has opioid receptors. You can train the brain to put you into a state almost like a coma state, and you don't feel pain. They took my shoulder and they took a piece of my bone from here over here with a screw in it. Nothing more than my dad talking to me. And this is something you can train the brain to do. Pain is optional. Like when I teach kids, and I used to teach young kids that were pregnant to give birth, their parents would always say, they're telling jokes between contractions. And they didn't have any pain when they delivered. What's happening? I said, pain is optional. The body's designed to give birth. It's all the fear everybody puts in their head that it's going to be painful, that they're going to have. So that anticipatory stress causes the body not to perform. Your body is far, if Wim Hof has taught us anything, they actually injected him with poison and he breathed it out of his body. Now, I'm not going to test myself with poison, but,
Patrick,
we're more superhuman.
Yeah, if someone stabbed me, I'm going to feel pain. Like, even if they stab me in the back and I wasn't expecting it, aren't I going to feel pain?
Yeah, pain is a signal. So what happens is in most cases, once you know the signal, you can turn it off.
Okay.
But if the signal's saying, hey, there's something wrong there. Now, if you get stabbed, you want to feel that pain until you get help. You're gonna, so you don't want to just avoid that pain. And I do think pain is important because if you don't listen to the pain in your body and do something about it, then that pain can turn off itself and then the problem persists. And I use the example of my mother. She used to say, I'm numb to it all. She died at 47 of a brain tumor that got the pain center of the brain. So her organ language, they call it, was I'm numb to it all. If she'd have felt any pain, she could have told her doctor and maybe got help for it. So pain's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. But when people have chronic pain, like everything's good. Like there's this big thing now in the world that's called mystery symptoms. The people are coming in and their doctor says your blood work's good, everyththing's looking good. We don't know why you're feeling this way. That's because it's not in their biology. It's in their psychology. But they're linked.
There's definitely a psychological, and then I mean, I'm a plastic surgeon, Patrick. So I have people that I do the exact same thing to on their face, and they come in the next day in crutches. And then I have people that went out and had pizza that night. So there's definitely levels of, and I cut them the same way, the same thing. So, and the habituation you can do, there's no doubt you can train it. I want to get back because you gave us, so you're definitely analyzing the brain waves, but I think the 3 bullet points, just to simplify this for me, I think, and Dom and everybody, like the BrainTap, like how does this work and why would I do it instead of breathing? I know I should do it all, but I can't do it all, man. I only got so many hours.
The reason you would do BrainTap instead of something else is because we have a proven system that works 3 different times of the day. There's not one size fits all. In the afternoon, you need to be training theta and gamma, and you need a full system reboot. It's a 20-minute session. And what it does, it's equivalent to having a 4-hour nap. At night, you need to downregulate your nervous system, start the delta rhythm as quickly as possible, because that delta rhythm only happens in microbursts. It doesn't happen like an hour long. It happens like maybe a minute on your aura ring or whatever, and then it goes back up. Those cycles during sleep, those brain waves, we've actually proven that you build your neurotransmitters during that time. So your neurotransmitter bank account is built while you sleep. So a lot of people can go to 10, 11 o'clock in the morning, then they crash because they don't have enough neurotransmitters. These are the things in the brain, when you think a thought, they connect with the other regions of the brain and make a connection. When you don't have those, you can have all the thoughts you want, but you can't act on them because you can't get to the information.
You said 3 times in a day, right? You
don't have to do it 3 times a day after you learn how to do it. But what I tell people is find out when during the day you need to really figure out when is your kryptonite happening? Because everybody has kryptonite. And if you find out where that kryptonite is, then you resolve that. Now you have a superpower. You don't tell people about it. A lot of people will talk about their bad stuff. They wear it on their chest like a badge of honor. And basically this disempowers them. So part of what we do with BrainTap also is we teach you how to think. I've written 11 books, and one of the books is called Discover the Language of the Mind.
What BrainTap is doing is giving your brain what it needs at the time. But it sounds like that time could be in the morning, it could be in the afternoon, it could be in the evening.
Yeah. And then most of the time, like we have a sports program with TBRX, Tom Brady's group, that's for mental preparedness. So those are just to get your brain ready for the sport you're playing. So there's different things like that. We actually have a medical series that people listen to if they're fearful of their surgeries, and we have one for recovery after they're done with their surgeries. I
got to ask if you've heard about it. I had this group. It's for specific. I do most of my surgeries awake, and it's specifically for surgery. And they put it on. It's only sound waves, I believe. I don't think they have the 3 components like yourself, light and vibration. I can't remember the dang name of it. I was trying to look at my email while we were talking.
Newcom?
It might be that, yeah. And I listen to
what Nucom does, BrainTap they only have binaural beats. We have binaural beats, isochronic tones, solfeggio frequencies, noget frequencies, and isochronic tones. All those are mixed in. The reason for that is not everybody can get the benefits out of. Now, Nucom used to be pretty good because they used to use electrostim. And that would basically, they would put a little low-level electricity across your frontal lobe. I'm not really big on that. I don't like destructive processes, but it would calm you down.
Dom, you could use that one, Dom.
Where I'm trying to get to is what I really want to try to understand. I want to understand what's really important about this is what do I need it for? What do the people out there need it for? So I just want to see if I understand this clearly enough. If you have someone who's really stressed out there, BrainTap has something for you. Yeah. If you have someone that is a hard time either going to sleep or getting deep sleep, BrainTap has something for that. If you get to, the afternoon and you're starting to crash, sounds like BrainTap has something for that. And the something is brain stimulation that's happening both through light, vibration, and activity to change. Did I get that pretty good?
Let me explain a little bit more too so you understand. When you were born, and also you, Doc, you were the smartest you're ever going to be. You actually had 18.1 volts. Your brain was on fire. You had a 100 billion neural bit processor going. And then you started learning. Your brain started doing something we call neural pruning. So stress causes that neural pruning to accelerate, meaning that your connections are leaving. So your memories are going. They're still there. Everybody has a perfect memory. It's their recall system. And then what happens is under stress, the brain will conserve energy because it's using a lot of energy. So it's going to say, well, we can't think anymore. That's why they say don't make major decisions. But we have over 3,000 sessions for BrainTap. So you could go on and on and on. We've been doing this for 40 years. So we have very specific sessions for things like even mind over menopause. We have golf sessions. We work with golf pros. Your brain is the main control hub that controls everything. So we're part of, when with our 4,000 clinics, we're like the thing with concussions, for instance. Our concussion study, we showed that if you use BrainTap during concussion recovery in the clinics, a year later when we go to check on it, they haven't done BrainTap for a year, but a year later we look at the people that used it and didn't use it. The people that used it were 30 to 70% in every neurological marker better, because the quicker you can repair the brain, the quicker you can get back to normal. And everyone listening should remember, your brain is designed to heal, just like your body. I mean, when I cut my finger or something, I don't sit and dwell on it. I know the body's going to coagulate, and it's going to cause skin to form, and it's going to heal, and it's going to happen. But a lot of times people get all concerned. That's why I say there's a psychological component. But then also that energy vibration, the reason we use light is we have proven that BrainTap can increase that intensity. And we did that in a study. It's called Saving Your Brain. It's actually a book now that's written by Dr. Kelly Miller, where we took everybody in the dementia study. They were all off the dementia scale in less than 6 weeks, because we found out dementia is the brain at about 7 volts or lower. Okay, so you're saying that BrainTap, what you're claiming is BrainTap helps dementia. Did I get that right? Well, we have to say it in a little different way because we're not a medical device. We're a wellness device. So what we say is we create the conditions where it doesn't exist anymore.
Why don't you get it approved as a medical device? I mean, get Medicare.
We are working on it, but right now I've been doing this, like I said, for a long time. And if once we do that, we're going to have a medical model that will be certified for that. But we have 120,000 users, right? They wouldn't have bought it if it was $2,000 or like the Nucom, which is just a pair of headphones. It's nothing. It's got 12 sessions. They charge almost $5,000 for that.
Yeah, no, I didn't buy it.
Yeah, our unit is very affordable and it works with just the sound. So if somebody wants to do it like Nucom, they can do it for as low as $30 a month. If someone has a hard time, someone out there, and there's lots of someones, has a hard time sleeping, BrainTap has something for that. My biggest question is it the kind of thing that's going to help for a little while and then it's going to go away? Like lots of different things. Once you learn how to sleep again, most people, we have a 6-week program for that. And 90% of the people during that 6 weeks will remember to sleep again. You didn't have to learn to sleep when you were a baby. It's all the other things your brain's doing before you sleep. And also we teach them, while they're listening, we teach them what's called sleep hygiene. Because a lot of people think they can go from watching Freddy Krueger into their bedroom and go to sleep. That's not going to happen. So we teach them, hey, go around when it starts to get dark outside, shut off lights in your home, don't drink any water 2 hours before bed. There's a lot of things you can do.
One thing you could do, it could be really evil. This could be like a book where you could have people pay, like myself, and you could be implementing in people's head, like, you need to get a better jawline. You need to get a better jawline. You could be like making them, I'm thinking about something something right now, you'd be like, you need to see Dr. Coughlin. You know, subconsciously, you're going to look up Dr. Coughlin.
Ben is always, Patrick, I'm sorry. Ben is always taking it back to surgery. He's just taking it. He wants everybody's jaw. I'm just letting you know, everybody's jaw.
Have you ever read the book Psycho-Cybernetics?
Have not.
Oh, Maxwell Maltz. He was you. He was a plastic surgeon, and he wrote about how he would fix these people, and they would look beautiful. They'd still think they looked ugly, and so he wrote about that. It was a psychological.
Mine all look beautiful. Patrick. Mine all look beautiful.
That's a really good book. You'd probably love it. It kind of synergizes what I do and what a plastic surgeon does. It's a really good book.
Patrick, you're dealing with a guy whose motto is I make people hot. So
there you go. That's good.
It's the truth.
My brother-in-law is a maxillofacial surgeon. He does this.
Okay, yeah.
He does the same thing. He's in Scottsdale, so he's in the perfect area for it. I have to take a picture of my wife before she goes and visits her brother because I don't know what she's going to look like when she comes back.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm gonna let's talk about this. I have a very wonderful mother. She has a horrible time falling asleep, staying asleep, all that stuff. She's tried all kinds of stuff, hasn't tried anything. You're saying that thing is her brain has forgotten how to sleep. She's also, I would say my mom's pretty high anxiety. I think that's a big part of this.
All moms are.
So, yeah.
That's what's stopping her from sleeping because she's not able to downregulate her nervous system. We train the nervous system to do that. We offload the stress. So think of your body like electric circuit. It's holding a charge. In fact, next time you go into like a home goods store and they have a voltometer, ask them if you can measure your voltage. Most people will have between 3 and 4 volts of energy. Then take off your shoes, go outside, and you'll be 0. You should be at 0 point because you're grounded. Actually, there's a book called Earthing by Clint Oper where he talks about it. They've been a lot of research. If she's running around and she's never earthing, she's never grounding that energy, it's like driving through Texas here. When you have 2 radio stations, you can't make out either one of them. That cell signaling is not happening. So she's not able to flip the switch from sympathetic drive, that high anxiety, to parasympathetic, rest, digest, and recover. And it's a training process.
BrainTap can help with that, though. I just want to be clear.
Yeah, that's what we do. I mean, that's the major thing we do. Every one of our studies. Yeah.
Percentage of people that have successfully turned that around. Did you do a study on that?
Yeah. The 10% we have. There's another 8% that will, if they continue to use it, will find resolution. But there's about 2% that would just give up.
How soon would you start? Like you start BrainTap, you have a hard time sleeping. You're my mom. You have a terrible time sleeping. You start BrainTap. How soon until that sleep starts getting turned around?
It could be that night. There's a link they can go to, like trybraintap.com. They can get a free trial for 15 days. Most people report back that they had their best night's sleep that night. But then the training happens because what happens is it's almost like you do a card trick and as soon as you figure it out, it doesn't work as well anymore, right? So people think it's a trick and then they start questioning it. But what happens is she could even listen to it in the room without putting it on, just in the room. We've done this with kids with autism because not every kid with autism has this problem, but they're in high sympathetic. They have a high stress load on their brain. They're not able to calm down. They're stimming. This is a representation of high beta brainwave, which is too much beta is almost like having too much caffeine. The brain's just going crazy. Right. So, but then what usually happens is they flip a switch and they become disassociated. That's why they call them disassociated kids. They get more theta. They don't have alpha. So we have to train them to do that.
Okay, so when you're saying try BrainTap, if the people able to do this phone, we don't need the headphones and the eye thing. We don't need the whole thing.
What happened in our study that I was talking about in Australia was the coal miners that used the headset in 3 weeks, they were sleeping better than 70% of Americans. Okay. The group that used the app alone, it took them 6 weeks. It's all about energy. So how much energy are you going to put? Like if I was to use laser on the basal ganglia with her and do it, it would be even faster. Because that's like the master reset for the nervous system when you use a laser. But most people aren't going to spend a few $1,000s on a laser. So they'd have to come into the research center and I would do it that way. But they can use low-level light.
Is there there's not a feedback, an immediate feedback, or is there?
No, but what we have is we have this little device here. This is my most recent invention, and it works with our app, and we can measure 7 parameters of the nervous system in 5 minutes. And our doctors use it because they can bill for it. That's why we created it, so they could do remote telemedicine, so they could do it. Yeah. But now we're making it available to our end users that want to know their nervous system. Now, but if they have a Oura Ring, Apple Watch, Whoop, these kind of devices, they can measure their HRV and their sleep metrics. That's usually the way people will do it on their own. We use what we call a circle ring. It's like an Oura ring. That's what we use in research because they give us a good deal on the rings, and we just leave them with the people who participate because they're not that expensive. But it gives us back the data, the sleep cycle data that we need. And there's one thing that most people don't realize about sleep. The first 15 minutes of sleep, you should not be sleeping. So when somebody tells me, I just hit the pillow and go to sleep, and they're having a sleep problem, they don't have what's called sleep latency, which means they go to sleep and their body's so full of energy. And then as it unwinds, they wake up because the energy's gone and their body doesn't know how to act. So that's why you do that. I don't know if I said the evening breath work, but you do the 4-8 breath before you go to bed. You breathe into the count of 4, you breathe out to the count of 8. This exercises the nervous system. And we have to train the brain to do that. And when you're breathing out, you extend that breath, and this is turning on the parasympathetic. When you breathe in, you might feel a little anxious because you're triggering sympathetic, but eventually what the body will learn is, hey, when it's time for me to be sympathetic, which there is times you need to be sympathetic. I wouldn't want you to be doing surgery on me and not be in a sympathetic state, where you could react and do things. You don't want to be like lackadaisical, and just be super relaxed. But after that surgery is done, you want to be able to walk over, maybe sit down, take a few breaths, and you're now back to normal. All that stress that happened there, it's not the stress that's killing people, it's the lack of recovery. Remember that. So sleep is part of that recovery equation, and people have lost the ability to sleep. And it could be technology too. If some people are very tuned into light at night, it's not just blue light. Blue light's not a villain. But if I'm selling glasses that protect you from blue light, I'm going to tell you that. But it's not true. It's all the energy. Like when we're looking at these computer screens, I could measure your energy. You are increasing in energy just by sitting in front of the screen, and it's messing with your brain. And if you saw what it does, like when a kid's playing computer games, I tell my grandson, you can play computer games, but an hour of computer games, you do a 20-minute BrainTap session. Because I've seen it. It looks like they did crack cocaine. Their brain's just all so chaotic and it's dysregulated. And so we need to, but that's okay. You can do that because that's how the brain learns. It remodels, that's called neuroplasticity. But if you don't have recovery, you don't get the neuroplasticity. What you get is you get a stressed, defragmented brain.
So Patrick, you really got something just tuned me up. I look at my sleep scores. Many nights I'm getting a lot of deep sleep and I'm getting a lot of REM, but my HRV is low. What does that mean?
That means something about your lifestyle needs to change. It should be high. I mean, usually that's like counterintuitive when I hear that. Usually if somebody has an hour of deep sleep and 2 hours of REM. So I would say that you might look at something you consistently do or eat and just start changing one thing and see if it changes. Don't change everything. Just take one thing and kind of it's probably just one thing you're doing that's crushing your heart, your variability. And the other thing is that you might have to, I don't know what your workouts are like, but if you came to visit me and stayed with me, I'd say at 6 in the morning, we're out jumping in our cold plunge, we're doing our sauna, things like that. And I'm middle-aged, so I'm 65. I need to keep my body going because I'm going to run the 100-yard dash today. I can't be just laying around waiting for my body to age and die. So I'm pushing my body to the limits and my heart rate will go through the roof. But when it recovers, I have a really high HRV. But sometimes I do get, just like everybody else, sometimes I travel a lot. I speak a lot in conferences. So sometimes when you travel, and this is what I said about jet lag, I've done studies with travel with airline pilots. Every hour in the air is like getting an x-ray. Your body has to fight that off. And every cell of your body is trying to match that frequency. And it can't. Because we're not designed to be at 50,000 feet. We're designed to be in the earth. And so our body's trying to figure out, and we're not designed to go 500 miles an hour. So the body's trying to say, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? And so it takes about 72 hours. That's why people, when they have jet lag, your nervous system needs a 72-hour reset. What we showed was when you used BrainTap, we can reset that circadian rhythm. That's why Tom Brady has 2 BrainTaps on his jet. And we have a lot of superstars using BrainTap because when they ride on his jet, he goes, you don't have jet lag, I'm going to do my BrainTap, you do yours too. And they use it and then they buy it after they're done. It's all about resetting the brain. You can't paint the house while it's on fire, right? So you need to put out the fire, then you can paint the house. Everybody thinks it's about doing more, doing. It's not about doing more. We already do enough. What we need to do is plan times. Your HRV would probably improve if you started doing like an afternoon session. When we did a study with Google and Microsoft users, after COVID, I was contacted by somebody at Google and we were doing what they call a peak performance study. It's now a TED Talk. And they said, what can we do to stop the burnout? Because these guys were just at home in their underwear doing programming. Now they're back in the pressure cooker at work and this was a unique situation. We could actually record their keystrokes. So we knew the work they were doing, right? So I told them, I said, you need to do a 2 o'clock, 20-minute session. well, we got so much blowback. There's no way they can do that. We can't take 20 minutes off. That's just crazy. We'll lose money. I said, I'll tell you what, those that want to do it, let's do it. Those that don't, you'll be our baseline. The group that did it, after 6 weeks, we went back, measured their workload. The average person that did a brain tap at 2 o'clock got 26% more work done. They actually got paid for a day and a quarter more than the people that didn't take the break, because the brain gets sharper. In the afternoon, after 2 o'clock, you have no more cortisol. It's already been bottomed out at 2 o'clock. That's that curve. So when you wake up, you have this high cortisol, norepinephrine, dopamine. You're ready to go. Today's let's go conquer the day. And then it's supposed to drop. Before agriculture and before we had factories, nobody worked past 2 o'clock. But now we push because we want to succeed. We want to make more money. We want to do these things. So what people do is they go do caffeine or soda or teas. And it's not a biological problem. It's an electrical problem. What they need to do is take a nap, but nobody has 4 hours. When we've done studies against naps don't work unless you get a 3.5, 4 hour nap. You have to go through a full cycle of sleep.
That's very counterintuitive. That's interesting. And to everything that's everyone's been saying. So let's take a second there really quick. You're saying that the 20-minute nap is bullshit. You need 3 to 3.5 hours.
Now, some people can do it. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm saying for most people, in just the 40,000 people we've scanned, that things like that, there might be somebody out there that can do it. And once you train your brain, I don't know if you know how Edison would solve problems in his lab. He would do something like that. He would hold an iron ball in his lap. And he conditioned himself that he would relax and sleep only as long as he could hold that ball. And then he had a pan down there. And when the ball rolled out of his hands and hit the pan, he'd wake up and he'd have a solution to his problems. And they figured out it was around 20 minutes. That's where that whole thing came from. But that happened for this genius. These guys probably weren't sleeping much anyway. They're just totally creative people and doing things. So
he was probably just getting out of his sleep latency. He falling asleep. You know what I mean? That's what it was.
Yeah. So the key is to unlock the nervous system. So if you can do that in as quick as 20 minutes, more power. And you can do that with breath work, by the way. If you do the right breath work, you can do that. I mean, I'm saying just sitting there, like a lot of people just lay down and they really spend their time fretting the fear of getting up and doing things. They're not really doing anything to fix their brain.
I love to see that you're inventing and growing and writing books and stuff. I'm interested into the business side of this. As a doctor myself, and now I'm cash only, so I really is a business. But I tell our fellow every year, for better or worse, this is a business and you got to learn that part of it.
Yes.
Probably you didn't, and I definitely didn't have much of a business background. So how is that part? Dom has the business background.
Yeah. I was very fortunate. I took a training with Richard Bandler and John Grunder, who started NLP, and I befriended a guy that was there. He sold banking services to 98% of the banks in the world. And he came to my office because I wanted to practice with him. And he said, Patrick, you're going to go hungry. You're terrible at selling, because you go to school and you get a degree and you think everybody's going to come to your door and pay you. And I'm going, well, I have these conversations with people that don't buy. He goes, yeah, because you're saying all the wrong things. There's a whole strategy we have around it now because I teach people how to selling. Self-help is different, just like what you're selling is different than selling an automobile or something like that. But what we do, we have 4,000 clinics, like I said, and they all have different business models. A lot of them, and we are in surgery centers, and we are in hospitals, and we're just getting ready to go into 300 hospitals in India through the Apollo group, so for recovery. So because we've actually shown that when you're relaxed, you recover faster than when you're stressed. So people will use it. And my brother-in-law, who ran a maxillofacial surgery center, Scottsdale Surgical Arts, he put it in his waiting room too. After he was done work, if he could, if they were wearing something.
That's the thing. That was the thing with me, because I do face like him. So it's a little bit of truth.
They can listen to it in the room. You could actually have the music playing in the room, like a theta session, and they would all tune to it. We do this with schools in India. We call it brain prep. We put on alpha sessions before they start the school. We have several school systems that are using it, and it raised their grade point average. We did it also in Brazil at Unisol University. We showed them if they play this session before their classes, the students will learn better. It's called the Mozart effect. And they usually do it with music, but we showed how it works with ours. And most of our doctors will sell packages for things like, because I was featured in People magazine down here for weight loss in 2006. And we did a study about it because we didn't have a diet. And we found out that using BrainTap, you burn 30% more fat at the cellular level when you're using BrainTap. So the body actually becomes more efficient at using fat stores, because most people don't understand that it's not what they're eating, it's what's eating them. And when you have a stressful event, your liver does something that most people don't realize. It dumps 25 grams of sugar into your bloodstream. At that moment, you're not doing anything. You're on your cell phone or you're driving your car. You're not using the energy. So the insulin pump pump has to kick on. Insulin's a fat storage hormone. So now it's going to mobilize, it's going to gobble up all the sugar, put it on your adipose tissue, and then before long, you're going to have insulin resistance. And then it doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to lose weight.
Patrick, that is also fascinating. We're just about out of time. We have a rapid fire. We just want to kind of throw it really quick. What is it in your industry? No, we love the passion, and there's just so many interesting things in here. I feel like this should be a 3-hour podcast. What is it in your industry would you say is real magic?
Well, I think that getting people into an altered state where they're not in their conscious self, because 95% of what runs your biological system is not your conscious mind. Now your heart's beating 86,000 times a day. You're not doing that. You're breathing over 21,000 times a day. While we've been sitting here, your DNA is rebraided every 40 seconds, every DNA pair. You've changed 50 million cells per second. And those are just a few things that are going on. You got trillions of things going on. So I think that, but when you dysregulate the conscious control, because that conscious control, that fear that I was talking about, the threat or the challenge, that is the first regulator. You can get into a safe place. That's why when people do things where they feel safe or they're around somebody that's safe, they crave that because their body functions better in those environments. When they feel threatened, their body doesn't function so well.
That's interesting. Okay. And then what would you say in your industry is bullshit that you hear all the time and you go, no, that is not right?
Well, besides Newcom, I don't think it's bullshit. I just think that they're overpriced because they have a study that was done with technology they don't even use anymore. So they should have to do new research based on what they're doing.
So besides Newcom, besides Newcom,
there's one called Neurovisor. And I was hoping that was going to be a solution because we can measure like I said, the brain voltage, and we use a light cap, or lasers to increase the energy. Because if your mother, for instance, has a score under 30 out of 100 for her age, for her energy, she won't have the energy to heal. So we have to provide her more energy. And you do that in the form of light, sound, and vibration. She could do an infrared sauna. She could, there's a lot of ways we do it remotely to do that. But what Neurovisor does, it has a one pad, and I thought it was going to be great. I did it in London. And you have like this out of body kind of experience. And I'm not a drug user. So to me, it was like I did some kind of psychedelic. So I thought it was really cool. And I talked the guy I gave him one of our equipment and he gave me his. And I said, can I see your research packet? He goes, so we haven't never researched. I said, well, you're telling me it's doing brainwave entrainment. He said, oh yeah, it does brainwave entrainment. I said, well, how do you know? He said, well, I just know. I said, well, that sounds like people with their supplements that have fairy dust in them. They did the study on supplements. I don't know if you know that. They pulled all the supplements off of these drugstore shelves and Walmart. There was 0 vitamins in them. 0. They wrote a whole article about it. I mean, they were all inert substances. So it was all placebo, people taking these pills. So, but what I did was I took it back to the lab and I said, I'll do some research for you. And I gave it to my lab techs. And I saw that it wasn't being used. And I said, Aaron, Michael, why aren't you using the Neurovisor? They said, did you see what that does to your brain? So I know if you came to my lab, I have a 6,000 square foot lab here full of really great toys that help your nervous system, not just BrainTap. That's just one thing. But we have light beds that have 18,000 LEDs. We have vitamin D booths. We have cold plunges, saunas, everything to test the brain. We have a lot of different gadgets like PMF. But that one, if my staff won't use it, I know it's bad.
Where do you think the method's going to be or the business is going to be in 5 years?
Well, we're growing a lot. I mean, we're just opening up India, Brazil, and also Canada, actually. We just signed a master distributor in Toronto. And so she's going to be going into the spa markets. So I believe that in our investment group believes it'll be $1 billion company within 5 years. Remember, we only have a 1% churn. So as we get people in, they don't leave. They keep using it.
If you weren't doing this, you had all the money, you sold the company, but let's take you back younger. If you weren't doing this, what would you be doing?
I've already planned that because I'm a big planner. I have 88 acres, as I was telling you before, out here in New Bern. I'm going to have brain camp. I'm going to take my lab because everything in that lab is not the company's, it's mine.
I think what I'm asking is if you weren't in this industry, you weren't doing this.
I can't imagine myself not being in this industry. This is my fun. Before I started doing this, my dad used to run something called the Silva Method. And I would help him with his seminars growing up. And it was kind of my part-time job because I didn't think I could make a living at it, But then I got a job being a radio show host. And then it was called Ask the Expert because I was a psychologist. So then I started filling my book with business, and then I said, hey, maybe I can maybe this can be my job. I can, because usually go to school. I went to school for electronics first, and you don't make. When I went to school for electronics, you actually fix TVs. So you're not going to do that anymore. You're going to throw those out and get a new TV. So but I can't imagine retiring. I don't have an image of me retiring and expiring. I have. I think I will do less of what I'm doing right now, but I will have people come to me. That's one thing I miss about my franchise company. I used to do a training at my facility every month, and everybody would fly into Virginia Beach. I wasn't flying all over the world doing these things. They would come to me, and I think there's a lot we can do with that. Now, my wife, on the other hand, she said that we're not going to do anything out there. We're going to just get a couple of rocking chairs and watch the river, but she knows that's not going to happen. I might be able to do that for a year, and I would probably go crazy, so I've got too many things I want to do that I feel about like retiring.
Patrick, what do you want to be known for? What's written on your tombstone?
That I did it and I taught others to do it. I was held back in second grade. I was told I wasn't very smart. I was never going to amount to anything. But my dad proved to me that when you start balancing your brain, you can be pretty. I was an artist at that time. I was getting, I just wanted to do artwork, and do those kind of things. So, I realized that there is an art brain still in here. That's probably something I would do more of. For sure.
See, it's coming out. I like it.
Yeah. So I would, I told Cynthia, said, you're going to be like Grandpa Moses instead of Grandma Moses. Because I'm pretty good at it, but I just don't. I told her, I said, when we build our house out there, I'm going to build a studio up on the roof where I can be outside and be painting. Then I wouldn't be around the smells, the nature would kind of take those away. Because I don't do it a lot now because I know the toxicity of everything that I'm doing. But I love to paint and things like that.
Love it. Well, listen, thank you for joining us. This is Dr. Patrick Porter of BrainTap, braintap.com. I think you might have heard it on here. You could try BrainTap. I'm going to tell my mom to give it a shot and see if that helps her sleep. At braintap.com, there is all kinds of different programs that you can actually sign up for. They have done a really good job actually giving you some choices. I've checked it out. But Dr. Patrick Porter, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.
That's good.
Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good one.